Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
Why did she have to go back to her room? 2. What happened that she couldn't be in the room? 2. What secrets did they have that she wasn't allowed to know? Liang Yinsheng didn't mind. She knew that she wasn't someone that Yin Qianxin could fully trust. Point 2. However, Yin Hua's anxious look indicated that something had maybe happened to Yin Qianxin. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng was worried about him. That was all. Point 2. She didn't leave immediately. Instead, she turned to look at Hao Cheng. Point 2. Hao Cheng still smiled. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng didn't insist. She got up and went to her room. Point 2. After that, everything was as usual. It wasn't the first time that Yin Qianxin wasn't home on an evening. Liang Yinsheng still felt that something was amiss. Point 2. Until the day before Liang Yinsheng was about to leave the country, did she ask. Point 2. What is he busy with? For the first time, Liang Yinsheng couldn't hold back her feelings. She had to ask Hao Cheng about Yin Qianxin's whereabouts. Point 2. Hao Cheng pursed his lips and held his formulaic expression. Of course, it's what you should be busy with, too. His words rendered Liang Yinsheng speechless. There were many things that Yin Qianxin needed to pay attention to. She wasn't first. Point 2. The next day, Liang Yinsheng was to embark on her trip abroad, but she had a lot on her mind. Point 2. Miss Yinsheng, it's time for you to board the plane, too. It seemed that she really couldn't wait for Yin Qianxin. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng sat in the waiting hall of the airport and had no intention of boarding the plane. Point 2. She wasn't a spoiled young lady who insisted that Yin Qianxin send her to the plane. Point 2. After that day, Liang Yinsheng thought about it and felt that something was definitely wrong. She had never seen Yin Hua's expression. Yin Qianxin's absence made her more than worried. Point 2. She didn't know what had happened to him. This time, she didn't want to hide her feelings. Point 2. Miss Yinsheng, you really should board the plane, Hao Cheng repeated. He guessed Liang Yinsheng's worries. Please rest assured. I'm sure you know what kind of person Sir is. After spending so much time with him, nothing bad will happen to him. I promise you, too. Liang Yinsheng glanced at the little diamond watch on her wrist. She knew that she would miss the plane if she didn't leave then. Point 2. If Yin Qianxin was really fine, she would let him say that he was fine. Otherwise, there would be no stopping her from going to his side. Point 2. She couldn't say such words, nor could she do such things willfully. Point 2. The feeling of not wanting to leave emerged in her chest again. Point 2. She had been badly hurt since the beginning, which she changed just because of Yin Qianxin, too. Clenching her fists, Liang Yinsheng put on her best smile and nodded. I understand, too. How could she have almost forgotten what Yin Qianxin taught her? If she allowed her children to fall in love, she wouldn't be able to achieve great things. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng slowly closed her eyes. All the things that had happened before flashed through her mind. Point 2. The first time they met in the rain, the cup of warm cocoa, when she had a fever and no one noticed. Yin Qianxin carrying her to the doctor. Point 2. He taught her how to dance. Point 2. They went to a noodle shop, cooked together in Country D, and went shopping together. Point 2. And 2. Liang Yinsheng suddenly woke up. After a moment of confusion, her mind cleared. Point 2. She understood why she was in such a mood, but she didn't want to understand it. She kept the immature thoughts of her youth deep in her heart. Point 2. The plane was about to land. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng looked at the clear sky outside, lost in thought. Point 2. About half a year ago, she and Yin Qianxin had stayed in Country D for more than 10 days. Those days were harmonious and warm. It was hard to imagine that the person with her was the man known as Young Master Evil. Point 2. Perhaps so, but Liang Yinsheng knew that he was not a completely cold-blooded and heartless person. Thinking carefully, she couldn't find any evidence to say so. She just had a strong feeling. Point 2. At the time, Yin Qianxin also liked to look through the same window at the scenery outside. It was unknown what he was thinking about. Liang Yinsheng once wondered if there would be a day when she would stand in front of the window and look at the scenery and understand his thoughts. Point 2. Stood there. She didn't understand. Point 2. She still didn't understand what he was thinking. Point 2. It took Liang Yinsheng more than 2 months to properly adapt to life in Country D. She lived alone in the huge house. Initially, She didn't think that it was only when she was alone that she felt that the house was big and empty. Point two. Other than Hao Cheng's concerned phone call, she had almost no contact with the country. She had tried to muster up her courage. Point two. On the other hand, Liang Yunqing's studies in Country D were very tight. She needed to learn what other people learned in 4 years in a year. Although her ability to learn wasn't bad, if she wanted to reach the appropriate level, it was hard to achieve without hard work. After all, there were no true prodigies. Point two. Every Wednesday afternoon was the only time she could relax herself. Point two. Without Yin Qianqian's consent, Liang Yunsheng took the initiative to choose oil painting. She had no foundation, so had to learn from scratch. Point two. Yin Qianqian had always let her choose her own path. Therefore, Liang Yunsheng thought that even if she didn't tell him, it wouldn't matter. Point two. Carrying the drawing board, it was time to go to the studio. When she arrived at the studio, she saw the human model, who was preparing. She only realized that she was going to practice the human body on the day. At first, she was very shy when she met a nude model, but the students in the studio were used to it. This needed to be seen through an artistic point of view. If she was too shallow and shy, her intentions wouldn't appear pure. Point two. After she gradually got used to it, she could easily deal with such things. Liang Yunsheng put on the apron she used to draw and began to seriously color adjust. She had just applied a few strokes on the canvas when she couldn't help but stop her wrist. Point two. A gaze fell on her. It wasn't a strange premonition, but a gaze that could really be felt. Point two. Aggressive, domineering, so strong that it couldn't be ignored. Point two. Liang Yunsheng turned around and caught sight of the unusual figure by the door. Point two. She stood rooted to the ground, not knowing what to do. All she could hear was her heart pounding in her chest. Point two. The man was tall against the light. Even in this place full of Europeans, he didn't lose out. His temperament was outstanding, and his entire body exuded the aura of a king. It was eye-catching, but she didn't dare to look at it. Point two. Liang Yunqing's hand trembled. The paintbrush fell to the ground, and she hurriedly bent down to pick it up. The spotless shoes appeared in front of her. Point two. Liang Yunsheng took a deep breath and cursed herself for being useless. What was there to be excited about, too? They hadn't seen each other for a long time. Point two. It had been several months since they last saw each other. It was not a short period of time. Point two. It wasn't like there had never been such a time in the past where they hadn't seen each other for a few months. Point two. However, this time was completely different, especially before Liang Yunsheng left. Yanhua's inexplicable actions had been on her mind. Now that she saw Yin Qianqian standing in front of her unscathed, she couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. At the same time, there was an inexplicable feeling of sourness in her heart. "Why are you here?" Liang Yunsheng asked. Her voice was raised, as if she was anxious, but also excited. She didn't expect to make such an urgent voice. When she reacted, Liang Yunsheng was embarrassed. Point two. "Why didn't you call first, too?" Yin Qianqian said nothing. He gently clenched his fist in front of his lips and coughed. Point two. Liang Yunsheng realized that Yin Qianqian hadn't changed much, but he seemed to have lost weight. His face was also a little pale. His temperament was still the same. Point two. "What's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" Liang Yunqing's surprise turned into worry. Point two. "Let's talk about it when we get back," Yin Qianqian said, not answering her question. He just grabbed her wrist and turned to leave. Point two. "Hey, I haven't packed my things yet." Liang Yunqing objected. Point two. The two of them spoke in Chinese the entire time. None of the people around them could understand what they were saying. They could only see Liang Yunqing's shock as Yin Qianqian pulled at them. It seemed that he wasn't very friendly. Point two. A tall man with blonde hair and blue eyes walked up to them and asked Liang Yunsheng, "Do you need help?" Two. "Move aside," Yin Qianqian said to him in German. It was an imperative sentence. It was more appropriate to call it an order. Point two. "Senior, I'm really sorry. He's a friend of mine. We have some matters to settle. If it's possible, please help me clean up." Two. Before Liang Yunsheng could finish, Yin Qianqian pulled her out of the studio. Yin Qianqian's mood was very strange. Compared to how happy she felt when she saw him, he seemed to be angry, too. Liang Yunsheng hesitated, but she still couldn't take the initiative to ask what was wrong with Yin Qianqian. He threw her into the car and drove straight home. Point 2. Are you surprised to see me? Yin Qianqian closed the door and turned around to look at Liang Yunsheng with a fierce aura. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng considered her options. Perhaps it was because they hadn't seen each other for some time, but there was a sense of strangeness between them. Point 2. Actually, you can think of it as a surprise. It's more appropriate. Liang Yunsheng thought about her next words. It was true. She was happy to see him looking for her. Point 2. Yin Qianqian sat on the sofa. Perhaps it was because of Liang Yunsheng's words. His aura was no longer frightening, but it was clear that he was unhappy. Point 2. Yin Qianqian coughed heavily again. After calming his breathing, he looked at Liang Yunsheng with a hoarse voice. I sent you to Country D to let you learn these useless things? To see a man naked, too? Yin Qianqian's words stunned Liang Yunsheng. Point 2. Her eyes widened. She had never expected that the main point of his anger was actually that. 2. This is art, Liang Yunsheng said, just like how you taught me to dance before. This is all art, too. I don't know what art is or isn't. I only know what is useful and what is useless. Teaching you to dance is a necessary means of communication. Oil painting. Tell me, what is the use? Yin Qianqian asked. Point 2. How could he be such a shallow person? 2. You've never cared about my things. Liang Yunsheng blurted. She couldn't help but be angry at being told that the things she liked were useless. Point 2. You're right. I just care too little about you. Yin Qianqian held his chest and coughed again. Did you really learn to paint just for fun? Are you too slow? Did you really understand the way the man who stopped us today looked at you, too? You don't know anything. I wanted to learn to draw also because, too, you don't have to tell me what you think. Yin Qianqian interrupted. Point 2. With that, Yin Qianqian stood up and walked out. Point 2. Where are you going? Liang Yunsheng asked, but she did not follow him out. Point 2. He was leaving just like that? What did he mean? Did he come just to have a big fight with her, too? The sound of the door closing made Liang Yunsheng come back to her senses. Only then did she notice that the phone on the table vibrated. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng picked up the phone and glanced at it. It was an unfamiliar number from China. After a brief hesitation, she clicked it open. Point 2. Is the boss on your side? The voice was somewhat familiar, but Liang Yunsheng couldn't remember who it was. Point 2. It's Ling Ruofei. The person on the other side said, after Liang Yunsheng. He repeated his words. Is Yin Qianqian on your side, too? Oh, he was just here, but Liang Yunsheng stumbled through her words. She was too embarrassed to say that the two of them had a childish quarrel over a small matter. Point 2. He ran away from home to see you in Country D. I really can't do anything about him. Ling Ruofei was clearly going crazy. Point 2. Ran away from home. Why did Ling Ruofei's tone sound so strange? Where did Yin Qianqian want to go? Had he really run away from home? 2. Yin Qianqian is injured, don't you know? How? Chung didn't tell you. Did I accidentally become a big mouth? Ling Ruofei said exaggeratedly. Point 2. What's going on? Since you've spilled, why don't you just tell me everything? A pang hit Liang Yunsheng's heart. Point 2. As expected, Yinhua's abnormal behavior was really an accident. It happened a few months ago. I don't know the exact details of how he was injured. When I received the news, he was already injured. Although he had also recuperated for a while, his injury was more serious. Apart from being shot in the shoulder and lower abdomen, he was also hit in the lungs by a stray bullet. Fortunately, he was treated in time, or else he might have died. His injury will take at least another 2 or 3 months to fully recover. Half a year is the minimum target that I set for him. Who knew that he was finally good enough to get out of bed? Then he secretly ran away and disappeared. How would we dare to investigate him? Hao Cheng was familiar with his personality, so he guessed that he might have gone to your place, too. Liang Yunsheng listened to Ling Ruofei's words in a daze. Before she could give him any answer, her first reaction was to chase after Yin Qianqian. Point 2. Yin Qianqian, you lunatic too. Yes, Yin Qianqian was a lunatic. Why did he force himself to come see her when he was sick, too? And he was still angry at such a childish thing. Could it be that he was really sick and had run away from home to be with her? 2. Liang Yunsheng didn't even have time to change her clothes. She put on her shoes and rushed out. Point 2. He's gone, too. On the other end of the phone, Ling Ruofei was obviously worried that something would happen to both Yin Qianqian and Liang Yinsheng, so he stayed on the line. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng didn't dare to run far, only walking around the house. She was afraid that if she left, then he wouldn't be able to get back in the house. Point 2. We argued, and then Liang Yinsheng started. Point 2. Speaking of which, you two haven't seen each other for so long. You should be intimate and sweet. What happened between you two? What important thing made you quarrel? Ling Ruofei asked curiously. Point 2. While running around on the road, Liang Yinsheng filled him in. Point 2. You guys are really... Ling Ruofei was on the other end of the phone, laughing so hard that he almost cried. Even he could not help but be speechless. Point 2. I think you still don't understand why Yin Qianqian is angry with you. Ling Ruofei continued. Point 2. Isn't it because I took the initiative to learn how to draw? After grasping the main point, Liang Yinsheng slowed down and decided to listen to Ling Ruofei carefully. Point 2. I promise you that reason is only a very, very small part. The most important thing is that he is jealous. Ah, too. Jealous? Of what? Liang Yinsheng blinked her big, sparkling eyes in confusion. Point 2. Think about it. He left us and traveled thousands of miles to visit you with his injuries. What happened in the end? Not only did you not study as hard as he had expected, you didn't even paint freely there. And what kind of painting was it? A man's naked body. He wants to take you away. There's even a senior who wants to snatch you away from him. If someone else dared to provoke you like this, I don't know how they wouldn't have been strangled to death, too. Liang Yinsheng was silent for a moment. What Ling Ruofei said was indeed true. Point 2. Let me tell you, men are sometimes very stingy, especially Yin Qianqian, who looks cold on the surface, but he is actually very petty, too. Oh. Liang Yinsheng had been chatting with Ling Ruofei, so she accidentally bumped into someone. I'm really sorry, too. You bumped into me. It was a bear man with a beer belly. His skin was rough, and his flesh was thick. Liang Yinsheng could barely touch him. It was obvious that he was looking for trouble. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng was also stunned when she was grabbed by her collar, and her phone was snatched away. Point 2. Yinsheng? Yinsheng. Ling Ruofei heard that something was wrong down the phone. Point 2. Z Nation. The bear man fiddled with Liang Yinsheng's phone in his hand. The people from Z Nation who come to study abroad are all very rich, too. Yes, they are Z Nation people. Another voice spoke. His slender fingers pinched the bear man's wrist with surprising force. The bear man growled in pain and let go of Liang Yinsheng's collar. The phone that was already in his hands was snatched away. Point 2. Yin Qianqian. Liang Yinsheng was both surprised and flustered. She rushed to his side, feeling more secure than ever. Point 2. Why did you come out? Yin Qianqian placed the phone back in Liang Yinsheng's hand. Go back inside, too. You want to leave just like that, too. Yin Qianqian thought that the bear man wanted to be a hero, but he realized the bear man was a tall, thin Asian man with yellow skin and black hair. What was there to be afraid of? Perhaps he could even give him more money for his drinks. Point 2. Yin Qianqian covered his lips and coughed twice. He opened a SIM card slot and took out the SIM card. He threw the phone into the trash bin at the side, as if he was teaching Liang Yinsheng a lesson. You can't take things that are dirted. Liang Yinsheng thought Yin Qianqian's were directed at her, but in fact, they were directed at the muscular man. Point 2. He spoke in German. If he really wanted to communicate with Liang Yinsheng, Yin Qianqian would use Chinese. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng naturally understood what he meant, but she was still faintly worried. After all, they were in a foreign country, and Yin Qianqian was injured. The man definitely wasn't a good person. He looked strong. If there was a conflict, Yin Qianqian would be at a disadvantage. Point 2. Yin Qianqian. Liang Yinsheng tugged at the corner of his shirt worriedly. Point 2. How could the bear man care so much? As he spoke, he threw a punch at Yin Qianqian. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng let out a cry of surprise and was pulled back by Yin Qianqian. Point 2. Yin Qianqian didn't make much of a move. He tilted his face slightly, and the man's powerful punch brushed past a strand of hair on his forehead. Point 2. His face was still indifferent. He didn't use any of his strength to make such a move. It seemed to prove the disparity in strength. Point 2. The bear man flew into a rage. His punches were out of order. Yin Xianxian couldn't be bothered to tangle with him any longer. After flying for more than 10 hours, he went straight to Liang Yunxing's school. He even had an argument with her and went out to buy food. He could see Liang Yunsheng being robbed in a day's point too. Yin Xianxian grabbed the bear man's wrist and pulled him. Before he could figure out the situation, he hit him on the temple with his knee point too. The bear man fell, and it didn't move point too. His movements were fluid and smooth without pause. He didn't fight for hundreds of rounds, as Liang Yunxing had expected, because Yin Xianxian easily took care of the troublemaker point too. Let's go, Yin Xianxian said to Liang Yunxing point two. Oh, Liang Yunsheng followed him and looked at the items in her hands. There was a bread and instant noodles sandwich. You were, too. I was hungry, too. Why did you suddenly go out to buy it? I was hungry, so I made food for you, too. She was still not satisfied with her decision point, too. Actually, I want to learn oil painting for a reason. Liang Yunxing thought for a long time, but she was too embarrassed to give the real reason point, too. Forget it, I don't mind. Yin Xianxian didn't want to continue the topic point, too. Liang Yunsheng knew that if she continued to explain, it would only make things worse point, too. She didn't tell Yin Xianxian that she had once found a painting in the cupboard at the bottom of the storeroom in her house when she was bored. It was a blue sky. It was a monotonous painting, but it had deeply attracted her point too. At first, she thought that the painting was painted by a modern painter with outstanding skills. Hao Cheng secretly told her that the painting was actually by Yin Xianxian point too. Liang Yunxing couldn't help but be surprised. She saw a person yearning for freedom in the painting point too. However, Hao Cheng said the matter had to be kept a secret. Yin Xianxian couldn't know that she had seen his painting. As for why, Hao Cheng kept his mouth shut. Liang Yunsheng wasn't in a position to probe further, so it became another solid secret on Yin Xianxian point too. It was a small matter, but it left such a mark in Liang Yunxing's heart. The month she arrived at T University, one of the school's venues had been loaned out for an art exhibition. It reminded her of the idea of picking up the brush personally point too. When she returned home, Liang Yunxing sat down with Yin Xianxian point too. No matter how powerful he wasn't made of iron. There was still a hint of fatigue on his pale face, which made Liang Yunsheng feel a slight pain in her heart point too. Sit down and have a good rest. I'll make you something to eat and take off your clothes, too. Sit down and have a good rest. I'll make you something to eat and take off your clothes, too. Liang Yunsheng didn't notice anything wrong when she spoke. She finished her sentence, smoothly stuttering. However, Yin Xianxian's silence made her feel a little embarrassed point too. Was there something wrong with her way of expressing herself? After thinking about it, her words perfectly expressed what she meant point two. Take off your clothes. Yes, that's right. I need you to do this. She repeated her intention point two. Yin Xianxian sat on the sofa, unmoving. Only his chest only trembled slightly as he coughed point two. Did you hurt yourself just now? Take off your clothes and let me take a look, too. Even though he was trying to hide it, Liang Yunsheng could still see that his brows furrowed the moment he raised his hand point too. She didn't know that Yin Xianxian was injured and she didn't pay much attention to it. But once she saw it, it was unavoidable point too. Didn't you say that you were going to make food? I'm very hungry. Yin Xianxian still didn't move. He was just waiting for Liang Yunsheng to fulfill what she had just said point two. If he didn't take off his clothes, she couldn't go up and strip him. It was important to be hungry. She turned around and went to the kitchen to make a bowl of her special pasta. The last time she tasted the flavor was in Country D point two. Yin Xianxian was still skeptical. What kind of food could this little girl make? Unexpectedly, she gave him a big surprise point too. Liang Yunxing quietly watched him eat. Yin Xianxian was sometimes as cold as ice and didn't like to talk. People couldn't understand him. He had his own chauvinistic principles point too. I know about your injury. Liang Yunxing looked at Yin Xianxian seriously. Don't you have anything to say to me, too? Yin Xianxian didn't answer. He just picked up the porcelain plate and silver fork and prepared to wash them point too. It was the same the last time. She cooked, and he washed the dishes. Yin Xianxian would never forget that she stood in front of him and said in a clear voice, the so-called home should be a division of labor and cooperation. 2. However, she didn't want to abide by that rule. Point 2. You don't need to do that. Let me do it. Liang Yinsheng reached out to grab the plate. She used her strength to push, spilling a big bowl of sauce on Yin Xinshen's coat. Sorry, I accidentally slipped up. Take off your clothes. I'll help you dry clean them tomorrow, too. She looked very innocent, but how could a trick be hidden from Yin Xinshen? Even so, he still repeatedly let her play tricks. Point 2. Why was it that Yin Xinshen had his own explanation? It was like hiding your slippers when you were bored. At worst, you could just knock its head to wake it up. Perhaps he was the same with Liang Yinsheng. Point 2. In the end, Yin Xinshen took off his coat as she wished. There was a white shirt underneath with bright red stains at the shoulders and waist. Point 2. On such a bright shirt, it was even more eye-catching. Blood! Liang Yinsheng cried out. She hurriedly took out the medicine box. Point 2. It's just a little blood. You don't have to be so scared. The wound has a small tear, but the blood doesn't flow fast. Use gauze to bandage it again, and it will heal itself. You may encounter more bleeding than this in the future. You can't be so timid, too. How can you be so stupid? Liang Yinsheng asked gloomily. Point 2. She wasn't afraid of the blood because she was timid. She was worried and distressed. She didn't allow him to say any more nonsense and pulled open his clothes. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng didn't care about the consequences and took off Yin Xinshen's shirt herself. Point 2. Yin Xinshen sat there calmly, waiting to see what she would do next. Point 2. After taking off his shirt, Yin Xinshen revealed his perfect inverted triangle figure. It wasn't as exaggerated as the Europeans in Country D, but it was clear how powerful his layer of muscle was. Point 2. His light-toned skin was almost invisible. There were circles of white bandages around Yin Xinshen's waist, shoulders, and chest. The white bandages were still oozing and were slightly moist. Point 2. You clearly know that the wound will tear. Since that person wants money, we'll just give it to him. You don't care? Or do you have to beat him up to show that you're strong? 2. Liang Yinsheng took out the scissors and carefully cut open the bandages and frowned slightly. Point 2. That's right. Yin Xinshen replied calmly. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng stopped. She raised her head to look at Yin Xinshen. She said that on purpose. She didn't expect that Yin Xinshen would admit it. Point 2. Show your strength to someone you hate and let those who think they are right and want to bully you see how ridiculous he is. That's right. Or do you think that we should bow down to those who are weaker than us and compromise? 2. Liang Yinsheng gently removed a bandage and was speechless for a moment. Yin Xinshen could always twist some of her instinctive thoughts. There is nothing wrong with thinking in such a reverse direction. Point 2. The wound wasn't big. Fortunately, it didn't need to be restitched. However, it still stung Liang Yinsheng's eyes. Point 2. You still have to ensure that you're not injured. Liang Yinsheng blinked her eyes hard to hide the fact her eyes were getting hot. Point 2. A small wound and seeing you being bullied. What do you think I should choose? Yin Xinshen's words had little emotion, but the sentence made Liang Yinsheng's heart beat faster in her chest. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng also helped Yin Xinshen bandage his other wounds. One bandage went around his waist, and her 2 hands took the bandage from his back. She leaned forward slightly. The 2 of them were very close to each other, like a sweet and ambiguous hug. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng used an unprofessional way to bandage all the wounds on Yin Xinshen's body. Fortunately, Ling Ruofei had taught her some basic knowledge when she was injured. It didn't look good, but it was comfortable. Even though Yin Xinshen was picky, he was willing to give her a passing grade this time. Point 2. Can you tell me why you were injured? She didn't want to interfere, nor was she curious to find out some secrets about the evil young master. She just wanted to know. Point 2. Yin family. Yin Xinshen showed no embarrassment, nor did he hide the fact that he thought Liang Yinsheng was overstepping her boundaries. It was as if they were talking about a common matter. Do you want to know more? 2. It was the first time he had mentioned himself and his family. Liang Yinsheng nodded. Her heart burned with an inexplicable flame, just for the sake of revealing the cold man's heart. Point 2. Yin Xinshen leaned close to Liang Yinsheng's face. He wasn't wearing the bloody shirt anymore. When he lowered his head, she could see the beautiful lines of his neck. His Adam's apple slid up and down as he spoke. Point 2. It's considered an upgraded version of the family fight, Yin Xinshen said in a low voice. There was a rare hint of a mocking tone in his words. A real fight is much more terrifying than the ones in movies and novels. 2. In Xianxun suddenly coughed a few more times and pointed at his own wound. These are all physical. At most, I'll die, but these aren't the things that are more painful. 2. Liang Yunsheng was stunned. She remembered when In Xianxun had dealt with Zhao Xuexiang, how he told her that the best punishment for the enemy wasn't physically, but mentally. Had he also experienced such a thing? 2. Liang Yunsheng didn't dare to continue thinking about it. Point 2. Don't be afraid. As if seeing the slight fear in Liang Yunsheng's mind, In Xianxun's big hand landed on her head and gently rubbed it. You just need to be yourself as you were in the past. Only, you need to be a stronger version. 2. Other than becoming stronger yourself, can I help you after I become better? Liang Yunxing's pair of bright black eyes shone with a dazzling brilliance. Point 2. Even In Xianxun was somewhat enlightened. The girl in front of him had changed. Not only was her appearance more beautiful, but her entire expression was different. Point 2. Of course, he wouldn't forget the Liang Yunsheng from when they first met. Her entire body was drenched. She was like a wet little sparrow that fell to the ground. Point 2. Now, the little sparrow actually said such a thing. It sounded funny, but it was also irresistible. The new Liang Yunsheng actually made people unable to take their eyes off her. Point 2. Maybe In Xianxun didn't try to discourage Liang Yunsheng, even though he didn't really think that such a weak girl could help him. Even after evolution. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng was inspired by his words. She suddenly found another goal in her life. In addition to making everyone reevaluate her, she could keep In Xianxun from disaster. Point 2. To prove that she wasn't a weak and useless person, she also needed to prove to In Xianxun that she could do it too. With a little selfishness, Liang Yunsheng had a fantasy wish, which was to stand shoulder to shoulder with In Xianxun. If one person was willing to work hard for another, what did that mean? Liang Yunsheng still couldn't figure out. She only knew that she had a firm wish. Point 2. A good night's sleep was needed. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng had no morning classes, so she slept soundly. Point 2. After she got up, she walked out of her room and went downstairs. After a few months, she had become familiar with the room. She rubbed her eyes, forgetting that In Xianxun was also there. She was wearing comfortable silk pajamas, and the suspenders on her shoulders slipped down. Her bare feet exposed her 2 snow-white thighs. Point 2. She blinked and met In Xianxun's gaze. Liang Yunsheng came to her senses and went back to her own room with a slight blush. She changed into the bare pajamas with shorts, returning from sexy to cute. Point 2. In Xianxun stood in front of the window that he always liked to stand at. He was talking to someone on the phone. The plane will be back in 3 hours. 2. Didn't he arrive yesterday? Why was he leaving so soon, too? In Xianxun hung up the phone and turned around. You're leaving already? Liang Yunsheng asked. Point 2. It took about 2 hours to get to the airport from the house. The 3-hour flight meant that they only had 1 hour to spend together. One breakfast. Point 2. I've made all the arrangements. Things like last night won't happen again. I came here to see that you're okay, In Xianxun said as he walked in front of Liang Yunsheng. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng's heart skipped a beat. Point 2. What exactly happened? Why would In Xianxun visit just to ensure her safety? 2. Is the situation in the country bad? Although In Xianxun told her who launched the sneak attack, he didn't tell her the reason. How bad was it, too? It's not as bad as you think. In Xianxun looked relaxed. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng cared about him, but he was afraid she would make a mountain out of a molehill. Every time, she'd panic and think that something bad was going to happen. In the end, In Xianxun would settle the matter with a flick of his finger. She decided to remain silent and not ask any further questions. Point 2. The two of them quietly finished their breakfast together. In Xianxun was ready to leave. If there's anything, contact Hao Cheng. This was the last sentence that In Xianxun said to her before he left. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng was disappointed. Why did she have to contact Hao Cheng? Why couldn't she contact him? 2. However, Mr. Yin was busy with work and had a lot of things to attend to. It was only right that he wanted no disturbances. Although Liang Yunsheng was a little dissatisfied, she felt that she had no position, so she turned around and forgot about the matter. Point 2. 3 months later, it was Liang Yunxing's 17th birthday. In the past 16 birthdays, in addition to her childhood, her adoptive parents would buy her a small cake to cheer her up. No one knew when it started. Even she herself had forgotten that she had a birthday. Point 2. Initially, Liang Yunxing didn't care about the matter. However, Chris, the senior who had stopped them that day, had seen her application form and had a comprehensive grasp on her information. He gathered a group of classmates who had a good relationship with her and decided to hold a birthday party. Point 2. One should never hit a smiling person. Although Liang Yunxing was embarrassed to socialize. How could the kindness of others tarnish her face? 2. It was just a trial given to her by Yin Qianxian. In fact, it was nothing. Liang Yunxing could make small talk with others. The first difficult problem that Yin Qianxian had given her was to bring her to a birthday party. Point 2. She had never thought that her birthday would come in such a foreign country and that she would play with a group of classmates with different hair and skin colors. Point 2. Liang. Chris took the gift and came to Liang Yunxing's side. His meaning was obvious. He had confessed to her more than once. This time, he was unusually serious. Point 2. What Liang Yunxing gave him was naturally an apology. Next week, I will participate in the graduation exam. After I pass, I will return to Country Z. 2. If you are willing, I can also go to Country Z to work with you. Chris knew that she was going to return to Country Z, so he decided to make one final gambit. Point 2. Liang Yunxing shook her head. Point 2. The Easterners were still reserved, and Chris understood that this was the meaning of her firm rejection. Point 2. You have someone you like, it's the man from that time. Chris looked unrelenting. In the words of you Chinese, he's just a gigolo. You all like that kind of face, it's very good looking, too. The strange 3 Chinese words. She didn't know where Chris learned them. Liang Yunxing couldn't help but chuckle. She didn't admit or deny. Point 2. If she could make Chris give up completely, that wouldn't be a bad thing. Point 2. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. Liang Yunxing lowered her head and looked at the name on the screen. First, she was a little surprised, then she pursed her lips. Point 2. Yin Qianxian too. Liang Yunxing's heart skipped a beat. Ever since Yin Qianxian came to visit her, their connection was close to being severed. Every time she would call Hao Cheng, all he would do was beat around the bush. All she ever got was a busy reply from her master. Point 2. It wasn't appropriate for her to ask Hao Cheng as the master. What exactly was he busy with? She tried sending him a few messages. Point 2. Liang Yunxing's face was trying hard to hide, but still inadvertently revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. Chris could only sigh softly and silently turn around to leave. He didn't need to look to know who the caller was. Point 2. Hello, Liang Yunxing said, trying to sound calm. Point 2. Happy birthday. Yin Qianxian's pleasant voice came through the phone. Point 2. He remembered her birthday, too. Hao Cheng reminded you, right? If it weren't for him, you wouldn't have thought of this. Liang Yunxing exposed him mercilessly and let out a crisp laugh. Point 2. There will be gifts later. Remember to accept them. When will you return to China? Yin Qianxian was such a boring person. Liang Yunxing didn't mind. She couldn't expect him to give her any surprises. The gifts were most likely from Hao Cheng. Point 2. Liang Yunxing paused for a moment and said, Didn't we agree before? In another 2 months, I will be studying here for 10 whole months. Professor Hans will help me take the exam alone. 2. Yin Qianxian went silent. Point 2. Liang Yunxing's hand started to sweat. Point 2. Yes, she lied. She was very hardworking. She spent more than half a year studying biology and philosophy. Point 2. Even Professor Hans was impressed by her perseverance. It was shocking and terrifying. Point 2. Yes, it was a wonderful specialty. Initially, Liang Yunxing thought that Yin Qianxian would recommend her to study business administration, finance, and other majors. She had already imagined hundreds of rounds of good business battles, but no one what he would tell her. It was good to study business administration well. She would be a manager and a part-time worker for the rest of her life. Point 2. The true leader should be good at using people and understand the fundamentals of human nature. Then why didn't she study psychology? She asked that back then. Point 2. Yin Qianxian's answer was that psychology was all a lie. Point 2. When the time comes, I can call Hao Cheng to pick you up. Yin Qianxian finally answered. interrupting Liang Yunxing's mental journey. Point 2. She was slightly relieved. He didn't suspect anything. Point 2. When she boarded the flight back to China, she was still in high spirits. Point 2. She was finally going home. Home, too. Was that word suitable for her, too? Although the house wasn't hers, there was boredom, Hao Cheng, and things that she still cared about. It could be called home for now. Point 2. Miss Yunsheng. This time, even Hao Cheng felt frightened. He hadn't received any news that Liang Yunsheng was returning. Point 2. Is Yin Qianqian at home? Liang Yunsheng said with a smile. Don't you welcome me, too? Yes, welcome. Of course, I welcome you a million times. If you're bored, put him in the yard. Let the maid bring him back later. Hao Cheng welcomed Liang Yunxing into the house and took the luggage from her hands. Point 2. If you're bored, bring him back later. I'm asking you, is Yin Qianqian at home? Liang Yunxing reached out and stopped Hao Cheng, who was about to turn around. Point 2. Sir's at home. Hao Cheng paused. But what? The more Hao Cheng stuttered, the more Liang Yunxing wanted to get to the bottom of it. Point 2. Sir, he's busy receiving guests, Hao Cheng said with a smile. Point 2. Receiving guests? Yin Qianqian rarely brought outsiders in here. She hadn't seen anyone else since she moved in here. What kind of big shot was he this time? And Hao Cheng conveniently didn't want to tell her. Are you surprised to see me back? Liang Yunxing smiled gently at Hao Cheng. Point 2. Hao Cheng looked at Liang Yunxing before him and smiled with relief. Yin Qianqian had met her at the beginning and brought her home. It was then that Hao Cheng met Liang Yunxing. Point 2. He met Liang Yunxing not much later than Yin Qianqian did. Point 2. It was unknown whether it was because Liang Yunxing was a sick girl when they first met. At that time, Liang Yunxing looked like a child who had been severely injured. Although her body wasn't injured, Hao Cheng knew that it was her heart that was hurt. Point 2. In just a year, Liang Yunxing had grown a little taller, and her arms and legs gradually became longer. Because she lived abroad, European and American people were relatively tall. She had also began to try wearing high heels. Her entire body had become more upright and elegant. Point 2. Her face was covered with delicate light makeup, but she maintained her original innocent and cute appearance. Every frown and smile was even more attractive. Point 2. She was like a beautiful butterfly that had been reborn from a cocoon, except the wings were still soft and immature. Point 2. Everyone had feelings when they interacted with each other, and Hao Cheng was naturally the same. Moreover, Yin Qianqian had also undergone some subtle changes due to Liang Yunxing's arrival. Hao Cheng had hoped to see Yin Qianqian live a more popular life. Point 2. After parting for some time, how could Hao Cheng not be concerned about this girl, too? Of course, Miss Yunsheng. I'm very happy to see you back, and I'm sure Sir is the same. No, he's even happier to see you than I am. Hao Cheng tried his best to promote his master. Point 2. So, Yin Qianqian will also be surprised, right? Liang Yunsheng rolled her eyes and raised her eyebrows at Hao Cheng. Her words were exactly what she wanted to say. In that case, I'll go up to him and give him a surprise, too. Miss Yunsheng, Sir is talking to Miss Sai Na. Hao Cheng hurriedly stopped Liang Yunsheng as he watched her quickly walk upstairs. Point 2. Sai Na, wasn't she in Germany, too? Liang Yunxing's expression didn't change, but she stopped walking. She thought for a moment, turned around, and said to Hao Cheng, then it doesn't matter. When I went to Germany for the first time, I had dealings with Sai Na. Although it wasn't a pleasant memory. Point 2. Hao Cheng couldn't stop her, so he could only watch Liang Yunxing leave. He thought to himself, Master, this is the best I can do for you, too. The door of the study wasn't closed. It was unknown whether it was because the matter the two were talking about wasn't important, or because Yin Qianqian was too assured of his servants. Point 2. Chun, how long do you want to let Sophia down? It's time to stop playing around. Sina, have you stayed in Germany for too long? You've forgotten the meaning of the Chinese words. Let her down. 2. You know how much Sophia likes you. Why did you do such a thing, too? Have you lost your mind and forgotten who I am? Or is it the first day you met me? Yin Qianqian, what is love? I've never known it, too. You don't know love? Sina continued. Then what about that little girl? Your fiancée who came out of nowhere? Even though Liang Yunsheng couldn't see the situation in the room, yet she could still see Sai Na's mocking face. Point 2. Fiancé is just a title. It just happened to fall on Liang Yinsheng. She can be anyone. A title doesn't mean that I will love her. 2. Liang Yinsheng stood by the door and listened to Yin Qinshen's voice like a pool of still water. Liang Yinsheng didn't mean to eavesdrop on their conversation, but she couldn't move her feet from the door. It was as if she had taken root. Originally, it wasn't a big deal. There was no harm in her eavesdropping, right, too? You don't love her? Sinai snorted. Then go and love Sophia, who saved you back in South Africa. If it weren't for Sophia's kindness, you'd be a skeleton right now. 2. I can give Sophia anything she wants, except for the love you mentioned. Yin Qinshen's voice was still calm, unaffected by any of Sinai's emotions. Point 2. And it's all because of that little girl? Don't think I don't know what you did for her. I don't need others to interfere with how I treat people. Are you here to denounce me? Also, I want to tell you that I can still stand here, unharmed, after the investigation, which proves that I'm still thinking of our past friendship. 2. Sophia can tolerate her, but I can't. You even brought her to meet Sophia. If it were me, I would have squashed her to death long ago. Yes, I did investigate you too. So what? I have a hot temper. If you don't like it, why don't you get someone to kill me? And if you can't kill me, I'll go kill that little girl, too. Sinai, you should understand what it means to stop when you're done. Don't talk to me about feelings anymore. I will never love anyone in my life. 2. Then why do you still want to help Liang Yinsheng? When did you ever give so much for others? You wouldn't do something like this without any return, too. Just looking at her. Pitiful. It's like saving a stray cat by the roadside. She's so grateful that she won't even take a bite of bread from your leftovers. She's so obedient and easy to tease. 2. Liang Yinsheng was stunned. Her heart was in a mess, as if a huge rock was pressing on her chest. She couldn't breathe, and the slightest movement would hurt her limbs. Point 2. Like an ignorant wildcat, Yin Qinshen's words weren't wrong. In fact, from the beginning, Liang Yinsheng had also had the realization. Yin Qinshen helping her might have been a sudden interest. As for the identity of his fiancée, Liang Yinsheng was certain that the Liang family was still useful to Yin Qinshen. Point 2. Too good a day could easily make people get carried away, and then they would be knocked awake by the peeling of the truth. Point 2. Yin Qinshen was a piece of ice that had no feelings. It wasn't him who was wrong, but her. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng slowly turned to walk down the stairs. Point 2. Miss Yinsheng. Hao Cheng hurried to her side and found that she didn't look well. Are you tired? Do you want to rest? 2. Liang Yinsheng came back to her senses and smiled brightly at Hao Cheng. I think I'll see them after they finish talking. 2. Liang Yinsheng walked to the door. Miss Yinsheng. Hao Cheng followed her curiously. Are you going out? Let me arrange a driver for you. 2. She didn't know entirely what she wanted. She just wanted to leave for a while and not see Yin Qinshen. Point 2. No need. I'm jet-lagged. Yin Qinshen might still be busy. I'll go out alone for a walk. After saying that, Liang Yinsheng fled, leaving Hao Cheng with a confused look on his face. Point 2. The Yin residence was in a secluded area in the suburbs. Usually, they'd take a bus back and forth, so they didn't think it was too far. They couldn't find a taxi on foot, and it would take them at least 3 hours to walk to the nearest subway station. Point 2. Due to. Suddenly, a long car horn sounded behind her. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng turned around and saw a flashy red Lamborghini approaching. Liang Yinsheng, the person in the Lamborghini, shouted excitedly. Point 2. His voice was hoarse. It was a mixture of familiarity and strangeness. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng. Liang Yinsheng. It's really you. He spoke quickly, revealing his excitement. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng frowned slightly and looked at the car warily. Could it be that someone was going to kidnap her again? 2. She had just returned to the country. Who was so well informed? Or had Yin Qinshen offended some strange person? 2. You don't recognize me? It can't be. With a mohawk hairstyle and a ruffian smile on his face. He didn't open the car door. Instead, he opened the roof and jumped out. Point 2. The youth took off his brown sunglasses and walked straight to Liang Yinsheng. Hello, too. You see you at. Liang Yinsheng called out his name in surprise. Point 2. It had been almost a year since they last met. During that time, other than the strange phone call, the two of them hadn't contacted each other. Point 2. You see you seemed to have taken a super hormone and suddenly become very tall. He had the skeleton of an, but he still had the thinness of a teenager. His face had become more profound than before, but he was still very handsome. Point two. It's me. I knew you wouldn't forget me. Yusue finally smiled, and his heart felt much sweeter. It was really great that Liang Yinsheng had not forgotten him. 2. Liang Yinsheng only realized after hearing his words that it wasn't because his voice was too unfamiliar, but because his voice had begun to drop. His originally bright voice had become dull and hoarse, and was gradually approaching maturity. Point two. What a coincidence. I haven't seen you for a long time. How are you doing? You're a little different from before. It wasn't only Liang Yinsheng who noticed the change in Yusue. Yusue also saw the Liang Yinsheng before him. From head to toe, she exuded a different aura from the past. Point two. Why don't we find a place to sit and chat? Liang Yinsheng suggested. Point two. Standing by the roadside in the wilderness, he really wasn't in the mood to continue chatting like that. Point two. After getting into the car, Yusue noticed something. Point two. Why were you standing alone on the road? Although he didn't know the exact location of In Xinshan's home, Yusue knew that this was a villa area. Did In Xinshan leave you alone on the road? 2. Not knowing the melodrama that Yusue had imagined, Liang Yunxing's phone vibrated in her pocket. Point two. She glanced at the phone screen and saw that it was In Xinshan. She didn't hang up pretentiously. She had just walked out and really just wanted to take a break to calm herself down. She was not blaming In Xinshan's words. Perhaps she should be glad that she had eavesdropped so that she could re-examine her relationship with In Xinshan. Point two. Are you back in the country? Even though it was just a question, In Xinshan's voice was still calm, without the slightest ripple. Point two. What would make him have emotions? 2. Yes, Liang Yunxing replied, not knowing what to say next. Point two. Where are you? Stay there and don't move. I'll pick you up, In Xinshan said in a hushed voice. Point two. Liang Yunxing's eyes rolled around and glanced at Yusue. I met a friend and was preparing to go out for dinner. You don't have to worry about me for now. 2. Friend. In Xinshan's voice curved into a question. Point two. Yes, he's a good friend, so you don't have to worry about him. After dinner, I'll call Hao Cheng and ask the driver to pick me up. 2. In Xinshan was silent on the other end of the phone for a moment, then hung up. Point two. I'm not so afraid of In Xinshan. Now it doesn't matter, even if you give me up. Yusue patted his chest. Don't treat me like a child all the time. I've grown up too. Yes. You're a man. Liang Yinxing couldn't help but laugh. Point two. Don't laugh. Yusue, who was trying to pretend to be mature and serious, lost his composure when Liang Yinxing laughed. He quickly directed the fire back to her. I say, you didn't answer my question just now. Why were you standing alone on the road? 2. No reason. I just wanted to come out to relax. Liang Yinsheng tried hard to act as if nothing had happened. Point two. I can see that sad look on your face. Yusue didn't know if he could really see it or if he was lying, but he continued. In Xinshan must have let you down. I told you that you would be at a disadvantage if you liked him. How could he have feelings, too? Liang Yunxing's her heart sank. He didn't use feelings. That was something everyone knew. Point two. She still smiled and said half-jokingly, Don't you remember? At your birthday party, you told me that there was a chance for me to pursue him, too. Bah, that was because I didn't understand the situation. Children speak without fear. Now I finally know how vicious In Qianshan is. Yusue naturally didn't finish his words. He stepped on the brake and arrived at his destination. Point two. Liang Yinsheng had yet to open the door when Yusue pressed it down. Point two. You have to wait for me. Yusue looked into Liang Yinsheng's eyes. No one would think he was joking. I will become a better man than In Qianshan. I will make you willingly give up on him. Turn to my embrace. 2. I know. Do your best, Liang Yinsheng said with a smile as she patted Yusue's shoulder. Point two. Yusue was helpless to be ignored. Fortunately, Liang Yunxing's empty stomach eased the awkward atmosphere. An airplane meal was really torture for Liang Yinxing. Point two. Yusue brought Liang Yinsheng to a quiet tea restaurant. The soundproofing of the private room was very good. The key was that it was under the name of Young Master Yu. It was more or less a small show-off. Point two. The two of them chatted and laughed in the tea restaurant. They didn't touch on the taboo topics between them. The atmosphere was very harmonious. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng had always had a good impression of Yu Siyue as her closest friend. She spoke more openly. Point 2. After having a good meal, Liang Yinsheng and Yu Siyue were almost done talking about the things they hadn't seen over the year and were ready to leave. Point 2. After opening the door of the private room, Yu Siyue went out first. Liang Yinsheng followed closely behind him, but she saw a group of youths around the same age as Yu Siyue. They looked to have ill intentions. Point 2. They weren't small-time hooligans. Point 2. Liang Yunsheng was now a person with discerning eyes. At a glance, the youths were all well-dressed. They didn't look very good, but at least they were exquisitely dressed. It was their aura was strange. They didn't look like children from good families. Point 2. Yu Siyue wanted to take Liang Yunsheng around them, but he was blocked. Point 2. Yo, Siyue, where you going? Your brothers are supporting your tea restaurant. There's no reason for you not to invite them. TSK, look, Siyue has become successful recently. He has also found a little girlfriend. She looks pretty good. A bunch of rich kids. Yu Siyue didn't want to pay attention to them. Point 2. Hearing his words, Liang Yunsheng couldn't help but laugh, as if he himself was a child of an ordinary family. Point 2. However, knowing that they were just a bunch of mischievous second-generation rich kids, Liang Yunsheng felt no pressure. They weren't gangsters, even though most of the young masters had a bad reputation and committed all kinds of crimes. If they wanted to deal with them, then there was still no pressure. Point 2. Hurry up and leave. Yu Siyue curled the corners of his lips into a mischievous smile. He raised his chin and said, "Wasn't the lesson from last time enough? Do you think you can deal with me just because you have more people?" 2. A small hooligan walked out of the group and came to the table of a customer. He kicked the table hard, throwing the food to the ground. Point 2. Fortunately, the customer didn't cause trouble with the steamed bun. The store manager went forward to apologize and waive the bill. Only then did the matter end. Point 2. When the other customers saw this, they all requested to pay the bill and wanted to leave. It was clear that with the disturbance, the customers wouldn't return. Point 2. It's just a tea restaurant. So what if it's closed? Yu Siyue could open 100 more restaurants. Are you guys going to continue being hooligans? Liang Yinsheng opened her mouth to speak, attracting everyone's attention. Point 2. Although her temperament changed, it was only compared to the past. In front of these rich children, she still looked like a soft and cuddly little white rabbit that was easy to bully. Point 2. Little did they know that the little white rabbit would actually say such a thing. The group of people became even more interested in her. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng felt no fear towards the brats. There were too many of them. Standing in the small shop, it made people feel a sense of oppression. Point 2. Yu Siyue clenched his fists. He decided that if any of them went up to touch Liang Yinsheng, he would let them eat his fists. Point 2. However, before the first few people got close to them, a soft voice split the group up. Point 2. In the corner, there was a young man sitting. He looked older than Yu Siyue and the people around him. His temperament was completely different. Although he was thin, he had a serious ruthlessness. A pair of peach blossom eyes glanced at Liang Yunsheng and Yu Siyue. Point 2. Ling Mo, it's you again. Yu Siyue clearly had some enmity with the man. However, before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by another voice. Point 2. Yo, 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 what are you doing? What are you filming? There are so many people and it's noisy. Are you still going to do business, too? The sound, too. Angus, too. Angus, too. Mr. and 2. And Zimming walked into the restaurant. He was wearing an Armani leather jacket, aquascutum pants, and a pair of handmade leather shoes. He looked like a peacock. Point 2. Ling Mo stood with a smile on his face, and then Zimming said, "Hello, long time no see, too. It's been a long time. You come together to bully, you little And Zimming half-jokingly said. Point 2. Of course not. We're here to play with young Master Yu. Ling Mo was obviously a little afraid of Zimming. Point 2. They were just Yin Qinshin's lackeys, yet the people were already bowing. It seemed they weren't very impressive. Point 2. Then you guys play with your own stuff. Don't bring my miss along, too. Ling Mo paused. His expression changed quickly. He continued to smile apologetically. Isn't this? We didn't know that she was your person, brother and 2. I'm not that lucky. And Zimming put away his cynical expression and moved closer to Ling Mo. He stretched out his hand and patted his face. This is someone above me that no one can touch. Someone that no one could touch, too. Ling Mo rolled his eyes, gritted his teeth, and tried his best to put on a smile. So that's how it is it? A noble that can't be touched. I, Ling Mo, am blind. It seems that young Master Yu isn't too high up, too. In the end, he didn't forget to step on Yu Yue. It could be seen that there was a deep grudge between the two of them. Point two. And Zimming didn't care about the grudge, however. His mission was to bring Liang Yunsheng back in one piece. Point two. Liang Yunsheng was a little surprised to hear in Zimming's words. She still remembered him looking down on her, and even mocked her for Yin Qianchen not acknowledging her identity. Point two. Now that she was openly saying that she was protected by the higher-ups, it could only be because of Yin Qianchen's. Point two. Ling Mo didn't expect to find trouble with Yu Yue and meet such a Buddha. Hence, he brought a large group of people and left dejectedly. Point two. And Zimming still didn't care whether they continued to fight or not. After all, his mission was only to bring Liang Yunsheng back. Point two. In that case, I'll leave with Miss Yunsheng first, too. Yu Yue wanted to speak up, but he hesitated. Point two. Liang Yunsheng smiled at him and made a phone gesture. You stay here and take care of things. I'm already back in the country anyway. Call me when you have time. 2. Sitting in Zimming's car, Liang Yunsheng couldn't help but feel a little awkward. Point two. And Zimming yawned. Masaji, who I was comfortable with, was summoned by my boss. You're really amazing. You're still haunting me. You're quite capable even though you haven't been dumped. I've really underestimated you, too. Liang Yunsheng pursed her lips. She wasn't provoked by his person's words. He was just enjoying himself. Yin Qianchen had asked him to pick her up as a chauffeur, so he had no choice but to come obediently. Point two. And Zimming wasn't someone who could stop talking. Even if Liang Yunsheng didn't answer, he could continue. However, apart from me, there's really no one else who could have handled this matter. Boss wants to make your identity clear and show off in front of those cowards. However, if he wants to come personally, he'll directly lower his standards. There's no need for him to personally come down to deal with those bastards, too. Liang Yunsheng believed his words. She thought about how scared the people must have been when they bowed to Zimming. If Yin Qianchen had come personally, who knows how scared they would have been. Point two. The car stopped in front of the Yin residence, and Zimming did not follow. He watched as Liang Yunsheng walked through the door. This could be considered as handing in an assignment. With a turn of the steering wheel, he drifted away. Point two. Liang Yunsheng hadn't yet entered the house when she saw that Hao Cheng was waiting for her by the front door with the dog, Boredom. He could no longer hold back his boredom as he squatted by his feet and rushed excitedly towards Liang Yunsheng. Point two. In less than a year, Boredom had grown big. Point two. Boredom probably had some golden fur lineage. He had the posture of a large dog. When he pounced on Liang Yunsheng's body, she was somewhat unable to withstand it. The feeling of not being forgotten was really good, though. Point two. After much difficulty in pacifying Boredom, Liang Yunsheng led him through the door. Point two. Just as she entered, Liang Yunsheng saw this serious man sitting on the sofa. He had the air of a king. Point two. What kind of aura was it that could make the leather sofa feel like a dragon chair? 2. You're back. Yin Qianchen's deep voice was transmitted to Liang Yunsheng's ears through the vibration of the air, giving her a lot of pressure. Point two. Yin Qianchen's words had a double meaning. He was talking about how she had gone out to mess around, and he was also talking about how she had returned from Country D. Point two. I'm back. I'm going to take a shower first. Liang Yunsheng lowered her head, trying to find an excuse to open her mouth. Point two. Wait. Yin Qianchen raised his voice, full of strength. Liang Yunsheng was stunned and didn't dare to move again. Point two. Every time I ask you to study, you appear in front of me. It's an eye-opener for me. I'm shocked. Yin Qianchen's words were mocking her. Point two. Liang Yunsheng had no choice. She was still afraid. She had originally gone abroad to study and had lived alone for so long. She felt that she had developed absolute courage, but for some reason, she still felt timid in front of Yin Qianchen. Point two. Yin Qianchen stood up and walked to Liang Yunsheng. She recognized him. This was his #1 face when he wasn't very happy. Point 2. Why are you lowering your head? Do you not want to see me so much? You haven't even come home to see me, and you're already going out on a date with you. See you, 2. Liang Yinsheng pursed her lips and raised her head. She looked at Yin Qianshun with her big black eyes. She really didn't want to see Yin Qianshun. When she heard his voice and saw his face, she would think of what he had said to Sai Na. Point 2. His expression was serious. After saying so much, he seemed to care about her very much. However, it was probably the same as him teaching a disobedient pet a lesson. Point 2. She wasn't even considered a little wildcat. Point 2. The good mood that he had built up after meeting Yu Siwei was washed away. Point 2. Aren't you busy with Sai Na? I have things to do with other people too. Liang Yinsheng retorted. Point 2. You are right. You are impatient after saying a few words. You have grown wings after leaving the country once. Do you want to fly out? Knowing that it was impossible, Yin Qianshun still said at. Point 2. Of course not. Liang Yinsheng said nothing more. Point 2. Go take a shower, Yin Qianshun finally said. Liang Yinsheng immediately turned around and ran upstairs as if she was a prisoner who had been released. Point 2. Yin Qianshun stood, watching Liang Yinsheng. No one knew what he was thinking. Point 2. Miss Yinsheng, you are really amazing. Hao Cheng followed Liang Yinsheng. Seeing that Yin Qianshun was no longer paying attention to them, he couldn't help but speak up. Point 2. What? Amazing? Liang Yinsheng frowned and reached out to touch Hao Cheng's forehead. You don't have a fever, do you? What nonsense are you talking about, too? There are very few people who can make Sir have such vivid emotions. Although there's nothing on the surface, I've been by his side for so many years, I can still sense it. How long has it been since I've seen him have such an angry and unhappy aura, too? Looking at Hao Cheng's exaggerated expression and words, Liang Yinsheng couldn't help but feel that Hao Cheng was sick. Yin Qianshun was angry, but he was still happy? How did that work, too? After chatting and joking with Hao Cheng, Liang Yinsheng returned to her room and took out a small habit that she had always adhered to since she arrived in Country D, her diary. Point 2. When electronic products filled almost all the time in people's lives, using paper and pen to write down one's feelings just felt different. Point 2. The first page of the diary was a simple calendar, and on the day that was a week away, it was quietly circled by a red pen. Point 2. Liang Yunqing's finger gently traced the date. It was an extremely ordinary day. It was also an important day. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng tapped the date with her white fingertips. Her pale pink lips couldn't help but curl up. Point 2. It was very important. Point 2. She accidentally saw it when she was cleaning up the warehouse with Hao Cheng. It was Yin Qianshun's birthday. Point 2. Although people wanted to suck up to Yin Qianshun, give him gifts, and many people celebrated his birthday, she wanted to give him a completely different birthday. It was simple, but it was unforgettable. Point 2. Wanting to help an important person celebrate their birthday made people nervous and excited. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng thought about whether she should first ask Hao Cheng to understand how Yin Qianshun had celebrated his birthday before. Point 2. After thinking about it, Hao Cheng was still a person by Yin Qianshun's side. If he accidentally revealed her affairs to him, the surprise would be wasted. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng decided to act on her own first. When it was close to Yin Qianshun's birthday, she would ask Hao Cheng to be her assistant. Point 2. She had a small amount of savings. Although it might not be enough to buy a cup of coffee for Yin Qianshun, it was what she had earned through her own efforts. Point 2. This was the first time she had sold her work, so the price was very low. However, since it was euros, it was enough to exchange for a set of simple gifts. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng opened the diary and wrote down the date and the weather on the latest page. Mood 2. Liang Yinsheng hesitated for a moment and first drew a happy, smiling face. She was really happy to be home, but there seemed to be some unhappy things, so she still drew an emoticon behind the smiling face. Point 2. It really couldn't be considered a happy day. Point 2. Liang Yinsheng wrote down a few words about her mood and felt a little sleepy. She closed her diary. It was unknown whether she didn't sleep well because of jet lag or because she had returned to her own bed. Smelling the familiar smell, Liang Yinsheng quickly fell asleep peacefully. Point 2. The next day, it was a good night's sleep. Liang Yinsheng got up early. After washing up, she changed in her home clothes. When she rubbed her eyes and went downstairs, the first person to greet her was actually not a person. Yes, it was a dog. Point two. Boredom ran to her feet with a rope in his mouth and spun around happily. She never forgot that there was once a girl who hugged him and slept in a stone house for an entire night. Point two. Boredom already had a collar around his neck. She didn't know who was going to walk the dog. Point two. The person standing in front of Liang Yinsheng, wearing light blue sportswear, scared her. Because she was going to exercise, her hair was unkempt. Point two. For a moment, Liang Yinsheng felt like she was looking at a university senior. It was the kind of person who smiled at you, and the whole world would melt. But two. When a man's gaze was directed at her, she realized that she was wrong. She was still so cold. Point two. When Hao Chung walked over, he saw Liang Yinsheng in disbelief. Her jaw was about to fall off. He narrowed his eyes and said with a smile, "Every morning when you run, you always look bored, too. In Qinshen, walk a dog?" It was simply a fantasy, too. But looking at his practiced look, he had gotten used to this routine. It would likely be the same the next day. Point two. "You should come with us today," In Qinshen said as he turned around and walked out of the door. Point two. Liang Yinsheng lowered her head and looked at Boredom, who wanted to shake his head and tail beside her and was eager to chase after In Qinshen. She tilted her head and said, "All right, let's go together, too." There was actually a day when they walked Boredom together harmoniously. Point two. Liang Yinsheng found it unbelievable. She didn't expect In Qinshen to have such a close relationship with Boredom. Point two. If she remembered correctly, when he brought Boredom home, he really despised it. But the name was a very good proof. When she asked him to name the dog, he said that he was bored. Point two. In Qinshen ran forward slowly. He was very clear about his running route. Boredom followed behind him at a moderate speed. Occasionally, when he was having fun, he would run to the front and stick out his tongue. He would wait for In Qinshen to run over before continuing. Point two. Liang Yinsheng didn't have any objections to their way of doing morning exercises, but the key point was that she was also running behind them. 2. At first, Liang Yinsheng was still leading the bored dog. Later, she was disliked by the bored dog for being too slow. He directly broke free from the leash and started running around In Qinshen. Point two. "Why are you running so far? When are you going to get home, too?" Boredom was an energetic young puppy. Although Liang Yinsheng usually exercised, she didn't eat or drink early in the morning and just went for a 10-kilometer jog. She wanted to say thank you and goodbye, too. Liang Yinsheng couldn't take it anymore. She squatted by the side of the road and didn't want to move. Point two. Noticing that his little tail was missing, In Qinshen also stopped. He turned around to Liang Yinsheng. "How can you be so weak, too? No matter how strong you are, I can't compete with you," Liang Yinsheng said. Thinking about how they had just run so far, even if they turned back now, she probably wouldn't make it back in one piece. Point two. In Qinshen didn't blame Liang Yinsheng. He knew Liang Yinsheng's personality. She wasn't the kind of person who deliberately pretended to be coquettish. If she said that she couldn't walk anymore, she was really tired. Point two. He didn't know whether it was because the sun was too bright or because the atmosphere was too good, but he had forgotten the time. From the looks of it, they had indeed run quite far. Point two. In Qinshen reached out and patted Liang Yinsheng's head. "I'll carry you back, too." He had the face of someone who was in a good mood. Point two. Liang Yinsheng had successfully read the atmosphere. Since he had taken the initiative to bring it up, she wouldn't stand on ceremony with a little evil intention. Liang Yinsheng moved her legs that were almost numb. She jumped onto In Qinshen's back. Point two. Liang Yinsheng wasn't heavy, and In Qinshen's body didn't shake at all when he was ambushed. Point two. "Why don't you take a breather while carrying me?" Liang Yinsheng said, hugging his neck. Her face was hot where he couldn't see. Point two. "When I was in school, I was much heavier than you when I ran with weights, too." "You had to run with weights when you were in school?" Liang Yinsheng blinked strangely. It was rare for her to hear In Qinshen mention his past, so she quickly asked. Point two. "Military school, too." In Qinshen had actually been to military school. She thought that he would have a strange identity like a mafia boss. She didn't expect that he had studied in such a place, too. Just two words made Liang Yinsheng more curious about him. In Qinshen was such a person. He looked cold, but as long as you started to understand him, you couldn't stop. He was like a thriller novel. Once you opened it, you could never get out point two. Oh, right. The atmosphere was just right. The golden halo of the morning sun scattered on people's bodies. It was warm and comfortable, and there was a gentle wind. Liang Yunsheng leaned against Yin Qinshen's ear and asked in a low voice, "Do you have any favorite things?"